This article by Tom Duffy is about somebody who's managed to turn their life around. A Liverpool man who was jailed for 12 years after heading up a drug gang is now behind a scheme which he hopes can help solve the crisis in the prison system. John Burton from Vauxhall was sentenced to 9.5 years in jail in 2012 after masterminding a £1 million conspiracy which supplied cannabis, cocaine and amphetamine to street dealers in South Wales and the West Midlands. But John, who enjoyed a lavish lifestyle funded by a thriving drugs business, was eventually jailed and later had an extra 30 months added to his sentence after police unravelled an elaborate web of money laundering. John had channelled dirty cash through a friend to buy a luxury apartment in the south of Spain, complete with its own fleet of high-powered motors on the drive. John said that when he was a drug dealer, he pumped weights relentlessly and took steroids to increase his weight to around 16 stone. He told The Echo his nickname with other Liverpool crooks at the time was Juice Bomb John. He said, "I grew up on a North Liverpool council estate in the 1980s where smack was rife. When I was 16, there were two kinds of people on our estate, heroin addicts and drug dealers. I looked at the state of the addicts and saw the dealers in the designer clothes and fancy cars, and I knew which one I wanted to be." But now John decided to turn his back on crime when he saw how his young family suffered while he was locked up for drug offences. Towards the end of his sentence, John spent his time planning a way to break the pattern of repeat offending. And he's now offered some direct advice to the government about how to deal with the current crisis. There are growing concerns about the level of violence and drug use in prisons, and he said to The Echo, "The Prime Minister and Justice Secretary should stop listening to people who run the prisons and start listening to people who've been through the system. We're the ones who really understand it. When I was inside, the spice thing was just starting out, but now it's really bad. I think prison violence can be reduced by giving prisoners something to feel good about. Let's use technology to give them contact with their families. Making prisoners happier would reduce some of the violence. Just think of the pleasure a 1-minute family video could give prisoners. The system at the moment is chaotic, it's a mess, and something has to change to stop the pattern of reoffending. We need to get the prison system out of the 19th century and take it into the 21st. That's what I'm going to do." John went into the system as a Category A prisoner at Strangeways, but was moved out of the North West because he was deemed to have too much of an influence within the local criminal fraternity. He spent the final 19 months of his prison sentence on the Isle of Sheppey, where he created a blueprint for a business aimed at helping prisoners on the inside and outside. He said, "I deserve to be in prison. I did something stupid and I had to pay the price for it. But I've got 2 kids and seeing my family travel 17 hours for a visit killed me. It wasn't their fault I was selling drugs, but they paid for it. And it was what they went through that made me want to change myself and the prison system." He said, "The prisoner governor gave me permission to spend my evenings studying in my cell and in the library. I knew what I had was going to change the way prisons are run in this country for good." When he finally walked out a free man in early 2017, John set up a non-profit company called Inside Connections. He said, "There are so many lads in prison who want to change. We need to give them a chance. When you're in prison, you see the same people who were there 10 years ago. I don't want that anymore, and I think there's something we can do to find a permanent solution to the resettlement problem once they come out of prison." The first part of Inside Connections is a mobile app, which allows families to stay in touch with loved ones while they're in the prison system. The second part of the scheme is geared towards providing released prisoners with the right support. John plans to open a network of halfway houses around the country, offering not just a place to live, but training and educational courses to help former prisoners get back on the right track. The first Inside Connections halfway house in Blackburn is due to open this autumn, just taking 2 young offenders and 2 older offenders. John said, "One lad came to me for help and he told me he was going to go and live with his mum for a bit. But I knew that wouldn't work because he'd end up smoking weed and hanging around with his old mates, and it's why the halfway house is so important. We can't take anyone on drugs. Everyone will have to agree to random drugs testing while they're with us, and we won't take high dependency residents such as sex offenders. What we're looking for is people who are trapped in a cycle of reoffending and what they really want to break. At the end of the 16 weeks, we'll aim to find them a place to live and a job so they don't fall straight back into their old lives. John himself was stripped of all the money he made from crime when he was in prison, and Inside Connections has been funded through private investment. He said, "They took everything off me, nightclubs, shops, houses, cars, money. I made and lost over £1 million and came out with nothing. But fortunately there are people who believe in what I'm doing and what I've built and want to support it."